Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface with the second part in my series which I'm calling Deconstructing Legion. Now that everything has been placed into this expansion, it's now time to reflect over it and see which aspects were successful, in my humble opinion, can I just stress that, and which aspects of it weren't so successful. Now, part 1 dealt with the story of Legion. Part 2, we're dealing with the content of Legion. And as some of you will most likely know, in actual fact, probably the vast majority of you will know, that about 1 month, 6 weeks or so, into the life of Legion, I decided I'd had enough. I'd had enough of the World of Warcraft, and I said that I was just at a point where I felt as if I was going around a hamster wheel. Everything was the same. Nothing seemed to have changed, and I just couldn't deal with doing the same old, same old. I wanted something fresh. I wanted something different, and I didn't think that the game offered it to me at the time. And so I left the World of Warcraft for just over a year. I came back after 6 months for a week or so, just to do a couple of videos to see after a 6-month gap whether or not it was worth returning. When I did, my heart certainly wasn't in it. I didn't feel anything for the game at all. I didn't get any vibe from the Broken Shore patch. And that was quick to be dismissed. Not to be seen again until November of last year, when at BlizzCon there was the announcement that Blizzard were actually going to go forward and produce classic servers, vanilla servers, and that piqued my interest once more. It renewed my vigour in the game, and I have returned to the World of Warcraft since. Now, am I playing WoW with the same fervour that I used to play the game? Well, what I mean by that is I literally couldn't get off the game. You know, that would be my go-to game. I'd wake up, I'd log on to it, I'd play it, I'd stream it, I'd do videos on it, and then I'd go to bed. And the simple answer is no. I certainly don't play World of Warcraft anywhere close to the amount than I used to. I do my Sunday mass streaming, of course, on Sundays, for people that like me to do the mount hunting business. And I have, in my personal time, been jumping around various classes, really doing their story campaigns and such, just trying to get a different feel for the classes, getting some to top level, trying to experience, because it was so class heavy, this expansion, trying to experience what it was like for them. But when it comes down to the brunt of the content, it's still not, it's still not grabbing me. There's only only so many world quests, etc., that you can do. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to go through the various forms of content that was added to the expansion and say whether or not I think it was a hit or whether or not I think it was a miss. And I have also divvied it up into 2 major areas, and the first one we're going to deal with is instanced-based content, and then of course the second one will be external world content, because I do think they need to be separated, and I do think that they need their own consideration. Also, one of them gets absolutely annihilated, and one of them I'm okay with. Yeah, and 3 guesses which is which. So let's start on the positives, shall we? I want to start off with the instanced-based content, because if I am to give Legion some props, because I don't think it was a terrible expansion. I think there was some really good ideas in Legion, and I think Blizzard certainly had the right attitude as regards to how much content needed to be in an expansion. I just wish the content was actually varied as opposed to just being very monotoned. But I think the instance-based content is certainly an area where Blizzard improved dramatically. And first of all, I'm dealing with dungeons. Now, dungeons, of course, has been a huge form of content for a lot of people, a huge form that people love and just absolutely neglected since Mists of Pandaria. I think there was 8 or 9 dungeons in Mists, maybe even 7. I can't really remember. Off the top of my bonds, anyway. And Blizzard announced within the first 0.0 patch that they weren't going to add any more dungeons to the expansion. They were going to have a normal mode and a heroic mode, which, yeah, heroic. And that was it. It's very disappointing indeed for people like myself who are actually a big fan of dungeon-based content. And then Warlords. There's just not really anything you can say about Warlords that haven't been said already. But again, they kind of adopted the same attitude. They had X number of dungeons, and that was pretty much it. I'm thinking, and I can't recall them adding any further dungeons to the game. No. Crap. And the challenge mode. Now, they did have the challenge mode in those days as well. But the challenge mode just didn't quite grab people in Mists, and it didn't quite grab that many people in Warlords for sure. But coming into Legion, ditched the challenge mode and actually came up with a much better idea, which is the Mythic Plus. And when I say much better idea, I am, of course, saying nicked from Diablo. But hey, if it works, it works. And guess what? It worked. And it worked really well. Because suddenly dungeons became a lot more relevant. I did a video recently about how irrelevant dungeons had been. But at last, top-end dungeons had something to scream and shout about. And the various levels of Mythic Plus really allowed people of different skill levels to do something. So people who had a high level of skill would obviously progress deeper, quicker, ladies, into the Mythic Plus dungeon numbers. You know, there'd be Mythic 5, 6, 7, 8 before you knew it. And people who had lower skill level, they would probably be looking at first to clear a Mythic and a Mythic Plus basic, 1, and then maybe a Mythic Plus 2, hopefully going through a 3 or 4. And of course, I'm talking in the 0.0 patch here. I'm not talking in later patches where it's obviously going to become easier and easier with the gear stuff. And so it was actually great to see that Blizzard was putting a form of content into the game that allowed people of different skill levels to still have fun doing the same thing. Which I think is very important indeed, because one of my critiques about the World of Warcraft has been that Blizzard say, they put content in for everybody, but that's not true, because they have to appeal to the lowest common denominator of skill level, so the vast majority of the content which goes in is just base and irrelevant to most players. And I don't know how many brand new players the World of Warcraft gets, but I sure as hell am willing to bet a lot of money that the vast majority of existing WoW players are people who have played the game for numerous years. So a lot of content just literally gets washed over, brushed over, because it's just too easy. And we'll get onto that later in the video when we're talking about external world stuff. So dungeons were a great success in terms of the Mythic Plus. Obviously, they offered some level of relevance leveling too. Not huge amounts, let's just be, honest about this. But that's okay. As long as dungeons have a relevance, I don't care if it is at top level. In actual fact, I'd prefer it to be at top level because, of course, that is where 99% of the content really should be appealing to an audience of an MMORPG. One thing this is just a greed thing, but they released, I think, 12 dungeons to start with, and then they added the Cathedral in 7.2, and then they added a dungeon on Argus in 7.3. I would have preferred it, even if Blizzard did, because there are 14 dungeons in total, I would have preferred it if Blizzard had maybe done 10 dungeons to start with for the 0.0 patch, if they were to do 14 and 14 only. I would have preferred if they did 10 and then 2 and 2 in the 0.2 patches and the 0.3 patch, because I just think it's a little bit nicer if you've got a couple of dungeons as opposed to one dungeon. It was great back in Wrath of the Lich King, where we had the Icecrown Citadel will come out, and then we had the 3 dungeons to choose from, which were attached to the side of the Icecrown Citadel. That was fantastic. And even in Cataclysm, when the final raid came out, when Dragon Soul came out, we did have the end time dungeons, which I actually rather liked. I rather like the end time dungeons. I like that kind of dystopian potential future for WoW and stuff like that. So again, it makes you feel as if you've got a bit of choice. But when you've just got one dungeon, it kind of feels, you know, I know I'm not trying to be ungrateful here at all, because I am glad that they put some in. But it just makes you feel a little bit like, nah. This is, you know, I've got one to do. Whereas if you've got a couple, it's just like, ooh, I've got this one. Ooh, then I've got the other one. Ooh, you know what I mean? Or even do 8 and then do 3-3. That would be probably even better. But I digress. Talking a lot about dungeons here. But that's because I'm glad that dungeons have actually got a place in relevance again. So looking forward to seeing more Mythic Plus stuff in Battle for Azeroth. Even hoping that they might try, you know, tweak it. Potentially, maybe even try something, maybe even raise the level. I think at the moment you can get to Mythic plus 15, I'm not sure. But, you know, maybe even raise it to give people the opportunity to really go balls deep, ladies. Also, on top of that, we're talking about raids, and there were 5 different raids. Amen. 5 different raids in Legion, which was really, really good to see. You know, the last couple of expansions, raids have been not dime a dozen, that's just it. They've been rocking horse shit. They've been so rare. And so to actually have a choice of raids, to actually have a bit of diversity when it comes to raiding, that can only be a positive thing. Now, I'm not saying all the raids in my eyes were mega successful. I did think that the Nightmare was a decent starting raid, a good opening point for people, the Emerald Nightmare. When we got onto Trial of Valor, now, of course, I'm experiencing these things returning in 7.3, but I was kind of struggling when I did Trial of Valor to see really the relevance of it. But that's probably looking a bit too deep. There was another raid with 3 bosses. I have personally been saying I would like to see more raids, even single boss raids return to WoW. And so for me to complain about Trial of Valor would be rather hypocritical. So although I failed to see its relevance in the grand scale of Legion, I think I'm looking at that more from a stories perspective more than a content perspective. So just looking at this from content perspective eyes, great. And then, of course, we've got the Nighthold, which, you know, I thought there's some good bosses, some bad bosses, but, you know, whatever. It was okay. I'm not going to say it's great or anything. Tomb of Sagaris, rather liked. Rather liked that as a raid. Aesthetically, could have been better, but that's just semantics. But the actual boss fight, pretty decent. Pretty decent. Had some really fun fights in there, which I rather enjoyed. And then Antorus, which I loved. I loved Antorus as a raid. Now, I think part of that is because I was doing Antorus as relevant content. I did it when it came out. I got into a raiding group. A raiding guild took me under their wing and allowed me to raid with them. So we did do progression raiding. We cleared it in normal, and we did it in quite a lot of bosses when I stopped raiding. In heroic, I just got sidetracked with other things. That guild's now gone on and completed the raid in heroic. And I really enjoyed Antorus. I think there were some great fights in there, thoroughly enjoyable fights in there. To be perfectly honest with you, really liked the variation as well in aesthetic. I mean, Antorus we have had a lot of green in this expansion, a lot of fell green, and yes, the raid does have a lot of green in it, but when we go off to do the Lifebinder stuff, I thought that place looked incredible. It really did look rather incredible. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the rocks in Vietnam, you know, that were in the water that Man with the Golden Gun was filmed by and stuff like that. Show my age. And so yeah, Antorus I think had some really cool aspects to it indeed. So from a raiding perspective, 5 different raids in this expansion, 1 small raid, and all the others really had a good chunky number of bosses. So from a raiding perspective, top notch. So dungeons and raids have been treated very well in this expansion. I absolutely give them 5-star seal of approval for the pair of those instance-based content. So you got to give Blizz props for that. You know, credit where credit's due. I also say that. I'll criticise them, which I'm going to do later. I'll criticise them when I think they're doing something bad, and I'll praise them when I think they're doing something good. And so far, Dungeons and Raids, which are the bread and butter of the World of Warcraft, were fantastic. Mage Tower, another instanced piece of content, wonderful. I can really see how people can get into the Mage Tower. I mean, I was struggling with the twins when I first started to try it myself. But even though I was struggling, I was enjoying. And I'm also looking at this from the perspective as somebody who did the Green Fire quest line in patch 5.2. Best patch Blitz have ever released. In patch 5.2, I went through the Green Fire scenario and then Canrathad at the end. And it took me all of the weekend and I think about 30 to 40 attempts, but I actually got Green Fire when I eventually got the quest item, which was about 3 weeks into 5.2. And that was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had the pleasure of doing in the World of Warcraft. Not just because it was specific to the Warlock, and that was my class, of course, but because of the way that it had all been constructed. The Black Temple scenario and the fight with Canrathad at the end being so in-depth and complex and really making you think about which Warlock abilities you needed to use, making you aware of everything that's going on in the fight as regards to spells coming in, cooldowns, phases, the whole job lot. Fantastic. Mage Tower, although it avoids the scenario aspect that brings you to the end fight, just pushes you straight away to an end fight, but has absolutely the heart and the soul of what the Green Fire questline offered to the game. So from a Mage Tower perspective, again, more of this kind of stuff. This stuff is great. This stuff is challenging. And once more, I'm going to refer to something that I said as regards to dungeons, that this, again, allows people of different skill levels to get involved in a piece of content that can be really difficult. Because somebody that does have a high skill level can really challenge themselves to complete this scenario, this boss fight, as ASAP that it's released. And obviously if you do, you got the artifact appearance, which gave you bragging rights. You had something physical to show off to people that they could say, oh, bloody hell, that person there, he's done the twins fight, or he's done whichever fight in the Mage Tower. And so it's a badge of honor, just like the Green Fire was a badge of honor for the Warlocks. And then, of course, people who have lower skill levels, they're not left in the dark because the content was placed midway through the expansion. And so the increase of gear you get, the increase in item levels of gear, only goes to help you in the fight. And of course, the more that you do the fight anyway, logic would dictate that you would start to understand how the fight is structured. So you could know exactly what you need to do, but just not quite have either the skill level or the gear to do it. And therefore, the incremental increase in gear score and the gear that you get from your raids and your etc. They can help and they can allow you to push you over the finish line. So it's a great way of giving challenging content that allows everybody to do it. Again, like the Mythic Plus, you find your niche and it can be very enjoyable indeed. Yeah, and when I killed the twins, when I completed the twin fight, I was very happy to have my very sexy appearance on my scythe. Yes, indeedy. And then we've got invasion points. Now, I'm going to call a spade here. They are what they are. I think invasion points could have been so much more than was offered. Just a generic scenario with multiple people. Kill X of these, kill X of these, kill X of these, boss fight. I really think they kind of missed an opportunity here. I allured to in one of my secrets videos that what I wish they had done is I wish the invasion points had been mini timeless isles, in as much as there would be events to do in the invasion point, other than just, kill these in phase 1, kill these in phase 2, kill this boss phase 3. Because everyone was structured exactly the same, and so it really didn't seem to matter what world you were going in the invasion point, because you're doing identical thing. And so the different worlds, which really should have been a theme, really should have been a theme that was pushed, kind of fell by the wayside. And you were just thinking, right, I'm coming in here, I'm going to kill these, I need to stand by this brazier for this one, and I'm going to, because it was just the same old. If they had done mini little timeless isles, like maybe even just put 3 or 4 events against the Legion, that people could do at their leisure, then I think it would have added a much better dynamic to an invasion point, other than just kill, and then kill. But that's just me. But I don't, I can't really give it any praise. I can't say it's shite or anything. It's not shite. It's just something that could have been something, in my view, a lot better. And then from an instanced situation, we have, and I'm only going to very briefly touch on this, we have the various story sections. We have the Illidan stuff, and then you have your class campaign, and then, of course, there was some of the main storyline as well. And so I was okay with that. I like the Illidan stuff. I think it gave us some really good backstory on Illidan. It tried to, semi-successfully, I'm not going to say it's totally successful, but, semi-successfully kind of trying to give you some motivation for Illidan, trying to show how he fell, and his motivations, that he needed the power to try and defeat the Legion, But it really kind of painted Illidan too much as a hero. He did some horrible, horrible things which were rather skirted over. Even when he was at Blackrock Hold and he was killing the Adepts to get their power to make it, it still came across in, I know I shouldn't do this, but if I'm to repel the invasion. So it was a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. And of course, there are moments where Illidan just did horrible, horrible things. I would have liked it if they did some story where we actually see not the benevolent side of Illidan, and not the kind of anti-tragedy hero elements which we saw, just the plain evil, just the plain nasty stuff that you could really question and say, did you really need to do that? And I'm talking about, the broken and stuff like that. Naga, the broken, yada, yada, yada. So I wish it had touched on that, but for the most part, it was good to see, at least, because story is something that Blizzard have been really lacking at for multiple years now, in my opinion. So it was good to see story-based scenarios coming in. I'd love to see a lot more of those. Faction-specific, so they can do a lot more of them, and then not focusing on the class stuff. Faction-specific, Pacific? Atlantic! There you go, I've balanced it. Faction-specific, so we can hopefully get a lot more of them in battle for Azeroth. Now, I need to give a disclaimer at this part of the video. If you don't want to hear criticism of Blizz, now's the time to leave, because I'm going to deal with the external content for Legion, and I don't think there's a single nice thing I've got to say for the rest of the video. So if you want to get all teary-eyed that he's not going to say anything nice, this is the time to step away from the keyboard, folks. Put me down. External world. Before I go into specifics, I'm going to just give a general overview. I think external world content in World of Warcraft is just diabolical at the moment. It is so piss poor, it's unreal. And I don't say that just as a tag, as edgy. Ooh, I cut myself on this video. He was so edgy. I say it from somebody who's gone away and played other MMORPGs, played Elder Scrolls Online, played Final Fantasy XIV, and seeing what they do with their external world content. And then when you come to World of Warcraft, it is dire. I think Blizzard do instance-based content a lot better than most of these expansions, if not all of these expansions. But external world content, it is Wow. I mean, wow. So and I'll go to the specifics now so I can, you can see exactly where I think everything falls apart. World quests. Obviously, world quest, daily quest, same fucking thing. You just get to choose, cherry pick, I should say, which ones you want to do. But essentially, it's exactly the same as daily quests because at the end of the day, if you walk up to a quest giver and they've got 3 quests, you can cherry pick which one you want to do there. So they are the same thing in essence. And Blizzard just relied way too much on this. Way too much. It was their kind of, should we think of something original to do? Ah, no, fuck it. Let's just go with World Quest type of business. And it really felt that way. And more to the reason of why it felt this way, and this is one of the things that just totally turned me off Legion at the start and made me just go away from the game. It is just so much of the same old shit, it's unreal. It just feels as if Blizzard just won't get creative with external world content. It really feels as if they... Not necessarily that they can't, because I think they can. I just think they don't want to. It's as simple as that. I just don't think they want to flex their original muscles and think of something to do. I say that, and then of course we've got two things coming in Battle for Azeroth, which I've yet to test. But Blizz, if you don't allow me to test Battle for Azeroth, I can't talk about your island hopping business, your island content, and I can't talk about the the sort of like invasion things where you get together in a group and you attack stuff. Can't remember what they're called right now. But I can't test any of that. But this in Legion specifically really came across as don't care, and it's just really poor to see because 7.0 saturated with world quests everywhere around the world, every zone saturated with world quests. Oh look, I've opened up world quests here. What do fucking do? 7.1, even though I've left the game by here, I still know, because I did the PTR for 7.1, I did obviously the Suramar stuff, but added more world quests. Falcasaur, world quests, more world quests. Hell yeah, world quests, more world quests. Whoop-de-fucking-do. That's going to be a phrase that I'm going to say a lot through this bit. 7.2, Broken Shore. Guess what, folks? Woo! World fucking quests. Really, that is really mundane. And obviously I wasn't there when 7.2 came out. I did come back for the 1 week in WoW business and did it for a week, and 1 week was enough to drive me insane. But from what I can gather, 7.2 did not get a good reception. The Broken Shore did not get a good reception, and it's pretty easy to see why. And then sadly, and this is the sad thing for me, Argus fucking world quests again. Argus should have been so much more than it was. It really should. The art department did such an outstanding job in the way that it looked. Those skyboxes were to die for. To die for. Those skyboxes were the prettiest thing you've ever seen in the World of Warcraft. Seeing Azeroth so large but so close was just remarkable. And yet, what did it turn into? It just turned into a fucking World Quest fuckfest. And it should have been so much more. Argus should have been that really special timeless isle type of thing. The something different thing. That's what it should have been. There should have been events. There should have been, that everybody can group together with. And I'm not talking about the rares, because all you have to do is get into a machine and flamethrower it down, and it's dead in a couple of seconds anyway, whichever boss it is. There should have been events for people to do. There should have been, riddle tricks and stuff. And I'm not talking about the tricks where you use the various weaponry in the piss ship to open up the caves, whatever. It's just a chest that's got fucking artifact power, and who gives a flying fuck? There isn't anything of any real interest in there anyway. And so once you kind of do the story, which was okay, the story in Argus was okay. I think it got better as the story went along, even though Trellian was like whatever. Even though that was okay, as soon as you'd done that, it was just like, oh look, what have I got? I've got a world quest, fuck fest, whoop-de-fucking-do. So in that regard, it was just a little bit heartbreaking, to be perfectly honest with you, because it looks awesome. There were some great areas in Argus. The zones were nicely put together. They each had their own little niche aesthetic, which I did like, considering it's a crumbling, destroyed planet. But the content, it deserves so much better. It really did. It deserves so much better. And that's going back now to when I said it's should we do something original? Nah, fuck it. That's what Argus really came across as. Oh, look, we've got this great world, we've got this great aesthetic, we've got this great skyboxes to set up where we are. What should we do when it comes? What time? Should we do some sort of like timeless yard? Ah, fuck it, world quests. It really does come across like that. Oh yeah, we'll just scatter some world quests around a place. Who cares? Who cares? You know, it felt like that, and it really pissed me off a little bit. Because it could have been so much more, and it could have been better. Holy shit, we've only got started with external content. It don't really get much more complimentary than that. Command table. Fuck off and die. Fuck off and die in a fucking fire, you piece of shit. Right, the command table is just a piece of absolute fucking garbage, right? I'm not going to get mad. I've got mad in a video once. People started crying because I got mad. The command table is anti-content. I can see why Blizzard love it, because they don't have to do any fucking work. It's actually damaging to the game, and the reason why it's damaging to the game is because it gives you the illusion that you're doing something, because it's rewarding you, and you're doing nothing at all, whatsoever. It's going, oh, look at all this money. Oh, look at all this money I've earned. I must have... No, you didn't earn it. You just got given it. You got given it by playing fucking Facebook. You didn't earn it at all. Oh, look, I've got all these rep tokens. Oh, no. Oh, I earned these. No, you didn't. The game fucking gave them to you. You didn't earn them one bit, right? Now, I'm not saying that Blizzard shouldn't like to reward people with rep tokens and items so they can go into a raid and get an extra piece of gear or gold or things like this for people logging in and playing the game, right? I'm not saying they shouldn't reward people like that. And I'm not saying, oh, fucking just put it into the world quests as rewards, because fuck that, because that just pushes more world quests, which is what we're trying to get away with. So it's just like, it's a little bit heartbreaking, because it's not as if Blizzard could ever create a really cool, interesting piece of content that gives you gold, that gives you gear, that gives you rep tokens, that gives you little items which you can use in quests, which is fun. And it's not as if they could ever do something like that. Oh, wait, they fucking did in 5.2. It's called Trows of the Thunder King. Fuck your command table, up your ass, Blizz, and put something like Trows of the goddamn Thunder King back in the game. Specific for that expansion. And let that be the way that people get the gold and the gear and the rep tokens and the other stuff if you want to give them away. That's something they physically earn then, and it's fun. But, you know, it's been data mined. There's going to be command table in Battle for Azeroth because, you know, fucking Jesus died on the cross for his sins, I suppose. I don't know. I can't get it. But it's just shite. I hate it. It's absolute fucking shite, Blizz. You know it's shit. That's the worst thing. You know it's shit and you know it's anti-content and you know it involves zero work and you know that it gives the illusion of being rewarding. That's the most frustrating element. They know. They know. They don't care. And the annoyance is, of course, like I said, they do have a lot of creativity there, and we have seen them do it in the past. Why they refuse to do it here in the future, no idea. No idea. They've shown in the past they've got the skill to do it, now they just don't want to do it. For whatever reason. Right, before I have a fucking heart attack, moving on. External world bosses. Bland, nothing loot pinatas. That's all they are. And it's sad, actually, because when I was alpha and... Oh, I went through puberty. When I was alpha testing and beta testing Legion, I think I did some... I didn't do all of them, but I did some of the world bosses, and they were actually decent fun, because they were a decent level of difficulty. And it was rather enjoyable. From what I can remember, I think it was rather enjoyable. And the problem is, whenever they go on to live, it's like the level of difficulty has been slashed in half almost immediately. And it's just like, that's not how they tested on PTR or alpha or beta or whatever. And it's really sad. Or if they leave it how it was, and then the first week they come out, you just get a bunch of people, oh, I fucking died. I died on a world boss. And they're fucking at the forums going, eh. And so what do Blizzard do? Capitulate, and they just fucking nerf the shit out of it. And so they just become loot pinatas. They become nothing. Just a big thing that takes 3 minutes to kill, offers no challenge, and, you know, all you're looking really for is if you get something in it. Oh, did I get a piece of gear? No, okay, right, see you next week. So, you know, world bosses, and the annoyance was there were so many of them. They put a good number of these world bosses, a great number of these world bosses, 11, 13, whatever it was, a decent number of these, and they should have been challenging. They legit, if you wanted to get your extra, you know, your extra little bit of energy, pointage, make us earn it, please. Make us earn it. So yeah, loot pinatas didn't do anything for me, and I'm going to end the last piece for me for external content. I'm going to class professions in here because look. I've actually written down a line here, which I'm going to read out. And this is the nicest thing that I can say about professions. Even giving them quests couldn't save this meaningless content. Look, professions are dead. They are dead. They have been dead for a while, and they're just getting kicked from expansion from expansion to expansion. And they're just dead. Blizz, I don't know why you've even got them in the game anymore. They are utterly meaningless. I don't even know. I think I wore one piece of crafted gear for about 10 minutes in this expansion. The ways of getting gear in this game, they're just so easy that it's meaningless for gear. So these things become meaningless for gear. Even like tailoring. The best you could do is a 30-slot bag. I could do that 2 expansions ago. Thanks. So all it seemed that people were leveling up professions for was whether or not they could make the mount that some of them offered. And that really appeared to be it. It's meaningless. The quests couldn't save them. They really couldn't save them at all. Either do something with them, Blizz, or take them out the game, because they're kind of embarrassing. It's like your embarrassing uncle who's trying to dance with your 18-year-old girlfriend when you're a teenager, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, she's gonna fucking dump me. She's gonna fucking dump me. This is embarrassing. Just can we get out of here? That's what professions are. They're embarrassing now. And the annoyance is, you just have to look at, again, I hate to make the comparison, but you just have to look at how, and I'm going to use one particularly, you just have to look at how Final Fantasy XIV treat professions. And folks, if you've never played Final Fantasy XIV, this is not me trying to get you to play that game. But what I'm trying to say with it is that the professions in Final Fantasy XIV are treated as relevant as your main fighting job. You have to get a whole gear. All your gear changes from fighting gear to crafting gear. And you have to make it, earn it, find it, get it as a reward for doing things. And that allows you to get more crafting points, which allow you to perform better crafting, potentially high quality crafting, which increases the stats of the gear. It's really complex. It's really fun. It's very rewarding financially if you put the effort in as well. And yet at the same time, when you're leveling up, it drains your resources, it drains your money. So it's good. It's got a good gold sink, and it's a good way of making gold if you put the effort in. So it's like it's a risk and reward. You put your money into the professions to earn your, to buy either the items, or you can level up other professions to go farm them. So it really offers you the choice of what you want to do. Go out into the world, farm materials for each and every profession, etc., etc. So much effort, time, love is put into this. It's as relevant as fighting. In WoW, it's a fucking embarrassment. It's just nothing. Offers nothing. This is the... I mean, last expansion you could say this to... Well, you could say it in the last expansion as well, to be perfectly honest with you. You didn't even have to make anything. You didn't. It's just got no relevance anymore whatsoever. And it's just sort of like there. It's just there and it doesn't do anything. And it's not even like a time sink. It doesn't even feel like it's a time sink. It's just there and whatever. And then, of course, just very quick mentions of things like archaeology. Again, just like dead in the water. Things which shouldn't be dead in the water, dead in the water. At least fishing got a little bit of love with the artifact fishing rod. And the fact that, you know, if you got your reputation up, at least you had something to do in terms of getting a mount and stuff. Archaeology, DOA, it's just dead on arrival. Professions, dead on arrival. External world content in WoW has to be looked at. It really does have to be looked at. Warfronts, I remembered the name. I hope that Warfronts bring that. I hope that this island stuff brings that. You know, I'm not going to know until Blizz, if Blizz allow me to test Battle for Azeroth. But I really hope that those two pieces of content coming into Battle for Azeroth prove to be not just relevant and fun, but to have some legs on them. And this is what external world content really needs. It needs legs on it. It needs legs. Because World Quests, they're just going to burn people out. That's all they're going to do. They just burn people out. Now, if you're sat there and you're like, oh, but Az, I like fucking World Quest. Great. Go down to your local McDonald's and ask the manager for a fucking gold star to stick it up your asshole. You know, great. There's always some people that are going to like that. But just as a form of content, I would rather be fucking smacking my head against a brick wall than constantly doing World Quests. I would rather smack my head against a brick wall than get excited about a patch that, when I realise it comes, just offers more World Quests. I'd rather smack my head against a brick wall that, after having a release and a patch of just World Quests, when the next major patch comes along, has just got more fucking World Quests. And it's just been the same story all throughout Legion. External world content needs a revamp. I will stress, I personally think we should return back to limited dailies, put a cap on them. 25, great. Do no more than 25 a day. Allow you to be a bit more selective with what you do. And it'll make you think. And I'm talking about 25 a day across the whole of the game. So if you're doing past daily quests, because you're trying to get, the white polar bear or whatever, it's going to count. It's going to count. But put a cap on it so it makes it feel as if there is a limit to it. Or something. But if Colteras and Zandalar, when we get to top level, if they just turn into fucking World Quest fuck zones, heaven forbid. That's all I can say. Heaven forbid. Right. So after saying all those nice things, conclusions. Let's just get to a conclusion. Look, when it comes to instance-based content, Blizzard are doing fucking brilliantly. They're doing really, really well. The dungeons are becoming relevant again after being irrelevant. There's been a lot of raid choices in this expansion, which is fantastic. And also, again, with just one raid having 3 bosses, I like that. Let's return to a few. I'd rather have like 6 or 7 raids if they just broke up the bosses into small increments and then a couple of big raids. But, that's just a personal point. Mage Tower, again, props to the Mage Tower. Top stuff. Invasion points, meh. Various stories, instance-based stories, sure, hit and miss at times, but sure, good. But external stuff, world quests, command table, external world bosses, professions, just bollocks. Really bollocks. Mindless, brainless, non-fun whatsoever. Fake rewarding with shite-like garrison resources and shite-like artifact power. Half the time they don't even feel as if they're rewarding you anyway. So I just can't be arsed. And I've got to say, this is the major reason why I am playing in my spare time other games, whether it be Kingdom Come Deliverance, Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 15 as well. Whether it be a single player game, an MMO, whatever it may be. This is the reason, because the external world stuff is so unengaging. I just don't want to get involved in it. I really don't want to get involved in it, Blizz. But there you go. That is my deconstruction of Legion, part 2. The content. And I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links, they're in the description box down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Bye for now.